It's a strange situation, isn't it? Airlines are desperate for new planes. The technology has never been better, and yet the entire aviation industry feels like it's stuck on the tarmac. So, what's really going on here? Let's dig in. First off, the demand is just off the charts. Right now, the global backlog for new commercial jets is over 17,000. That's a mind boggling number. We're talking more than a decade of production all lined up and waiting. And what this means in reality is that the big players, Airbus and Boeing, are basically sold out for most of the next decade. They're trying their best to ramp up, but they just cannot build planes fast enough to meet this incredible demand. So if we can clearly design these incredible machines, what's the real holdup? Why can't the system deliver? Well, the answer isn't in the blueprints, and it's not in the factory robotics. It's about people. Okay, so let's talk about the first major crack in this system. It's the maintainers. These are the folks who keep the planes we fly on every day safe and in the air. They're the hands-on workforce doing everything from routine checks to really complex, deep repairs. And we're not just talking about a small shortage here. This is a rapidly widening gap. Just look at this projection. In North America, we were short about 18,000 mechanics last year. By 2028, that number is expected to balloon to over 31,000. That's a huge problem. So why is this happening? Well, it's really a perfect storm. You've got other industries poaching skilled workers, the training itself is long and it costs a lot of money, and the current workforce is getting older. The median age for mechanic in the US is 51, and we just don't have enough young people coming in to fill those shoes. And this kicks off a really dangerous feedback loop. See, when planes aren't in top shape, they need more work. But if you have a smaller, less experienced workforce, you get less work done. That leads to more planes waiting for maintenance, which, you guessed it, makes the overall health of the fleet even worse. It's a vicious cycle that just feeds on itself. So what does this mean for you and me? Well, here's the bottom line. This isn't just some abstract industry problem. It directly leads to fewer flights being available and more of the delays and cancellations that are becoming way too familiar for anyone who travels. Now, that leads us right to the second crack in the system, the certifiers. These are the incredibly specialized engineers who have to sign off on every single new aircraft design, making sure it's absolutely safe to fly. I mean, just think about a modern jet for a second. Millions of parts, millions of lines of computer code. How on earth can a single government agency, like the FAA, possibly have enough experts on staff to personally inspect and approve every single one of those details? Well, the answer for decades now has been delegation. The FAA uses a program called Organization Designation Authorization, or ODA. It basically lets the FAA grant authority to the manufacturers themselves to do a lot of the certification work on the government's behalf. And to really get a sense of how much the system relies on this, check out these numbers. The FAA's Aircraft Certification Service, it has roughly 1,340 people. Now compare that to the number of people in the private sector, at the manufacturers and suppliers who are authorized to do that same work on the FAA's behalf. We're talking about 7,500 people. That contrast tells you everything. The system is almost completely dependent on these industry experts. And the way this works has changed over time, and it's a really big deal. In the old days, you had individual engineers who reported directly to an FAA contact. Now, under the ODA model, the FAA delegates authority to a whole company unit, which then manages its own people. So the FAA's oversight has shifted from managing individuals to auditing an organization's processes. And just so you know, this isn't some new radical idea. The legal groundwork for this has been around for a very long time. The basic concept has always been that the FAA just can't do it all alone, so it's allowed to bring in qualified experts from the private sector to help. This brings us to the third and final crack. And this one might be the most fundamental of all. It's not just the industry with a people problem. The government watchdogs themselves, the regulators, are stretched dangerously thin. This data from global safety audits is pretty shocking. When they find significant problems with a country's safety oversight, what's the number one cause? Look at that. 2/3 of the time, the primary factor is staffing constraints, not enough people. And the reasons? They look awfully familiar, don't they? An aging workforce, pay that just can't compete with private companies, not enough new talent coming in the door, and no real plan for who takes over when the current experts retire. And yeah, the pandemic just threw gasoline on that fire.
The fallout from this is huge. When you don't have enough regulators, new planes take longer to get approved, there are fewer inspectors watching over airlines and repair shops, and it takes longer to bring new safety tech into the system. Everything slows down.
So now let's pull all these threads together. You've got the maintainers, the certifiers, and the regulators. Let's see how they create this massive human bottleneck. And this is the single most important thing to understand. These are not three separate issues. They're all symptoms of one single, interconnected system of people that is under an incredible amount of stress. And here's how they feed on each other, like a chain reaction. First, when government regulators are stretched thin, they have to rely even more on the certifiers inside the companies. Then, those certifiers are under intense pressure to meet deadlines, which can lead to issues getting missed, pushing the burden down the line to the maintainers. And finally, that shortage of maintainers creates the delays and operational problems that put stress right back on the entire system. So, when it all comes down to it, here's the bottom line. When we talk about making a plane safe, we can't just talk about the engines or the wings or the software. The human systems, the network of skilled maintainers, certifiers, and regulators are just as critical to safety as any piece of metal. So as we continue to design these incredibly advanced, brilliant flying machines, it leaves us with one vital, lingering question. Who's responsible for making sure the human infrastructure that supports them is just as advanced and just as strong?